According to national crime data, exactly 0.01752% of all relationships end in homicide. Most people look at that statistic with absolute horror, but Bart looks at it as a checklist. Today, we are diving deep into the mind of a completely deranged, calculated individual who is on a desperate clinical quest to find his mathematically perfect life partner. This story gets incredibly uncomfortable, dealing with severe psychological depravity, graphic violence, and things that will genuinely turn your stomach. But if you have a dark curiosity, the payoff at the end of this narrative will give you literal goosebumps. Do me a favor. Turn off your room lights, plug in your headphones, and just let this video run completely in the background while you finish your homework, clean your room, or do your chores. You don't need to stare at the screen. Just let my voice take you into the mind of Bart. Let's begin. To understand the terror of this story, you have to understand who Bart is. Bart is a short, balding, overweight man in his late 30s who wears thick glasses and works as a low-paid fry cook at a greasy joint called Jim's Burgers. He hates tats, he despises children, and he occasionally commits unspeakable acts of cruelty just to see what happens. But Bart doesn't see himself as a monster. In his mind, he is an absolute catch. Why? Because Bart views the entire human experience through clinical internet statistics. When Bart wakes up in the morning, his routine is entirely driven by numbers. He stands in front of the bathroom mirror, unable to even see his lower half because of his massive stomach. But instead of feeling insecure, Bart smiles. Why? Because according to his online research, 69% of women actually prefer a man with a dad bod. Granted, his stomach is twice the size of an average dad bod, but to Bart, the math still checks out. He brushes his teeth and looks at his shiny, completely bald head. He rationalizes it instantly. 43% of women find bald men highly attractive. Sure, that statistic usually applies to men in their 40s and 50s, and he's only 30, but he counts it as a win. He blows his nose into a tissue, looks at the disgusting yellow-green discharge, and carefully places the used tissue into a Ziploc bag, sliding it into his pocket next to his keys. He sprays on heavy cologne, remembering another statistic: women are biologically attracted to a man's natural sweat. He puts on his greasy uniform and sits down for a heavily calculated, healthy breakfast. He needs the energy, because today might be the day he encounters his 1% perfect match. He consciously avoids coffee because coffee ruins your breath, and statistics prove bad breath kills a first impression. He even spends his remaining free time watching YouTube tutorials on how to fix fuel pumps and build picnic tables, because data shows women love a resourceful man. He even flips through women's fashion magazines to study underwear comfort levels, adjusting his thick glasses, completely obsessed with the perfect formula for romance. When Bart steps out of his house, he prides himself on owning his own property. Statistics state that women heavily prefer a man who owns a home. What the statistics don't mention, however, is how Bart got the house. It belonged to his mother, right up until the day she suddenly drank a cup of tea that someone had secretly laced with lethal doses of cyanide. What a tragic mystery. Bart walks to work. He owns a car, but his license was permanently suspended after a highly disturbing incident in Gulfstone involving a dead raccoon and a tub of motor oil, the details of which are too horrific to mention. But walking 1.6 miles to Jim's Burgers is just an exercise routine to Bart. Statistics show 63% of women love a man who exercises daily. To keep his stats up, whenever Bart gets a break at work, he does aggressive hip thrusts, shadow boxes the air, and lifts heavy objects, like the stray cat that wanders into his yard every morning, which Bart routinely picks up and violently hurls across the asphalt street. On his walk, he encounters his elderly, widowed neighbor. She calls out, "Hello, Bartholomeus." Bart cringes. He hates his full name. Studies show women prefer short, punchy names, which is why he goes by Bart, but his last name is Bartley, making his name Bart Bartley. He looks at his elderly neighbor, casually calculating that she must have been beautiful in her youth, but he has zero interest in older women. Besides, statistics show widows constantly compare new partners to their dead husbands, and Bart refuses to be a second-choice shadow. Even though, by his own admission, he has fantasized about her and touched himself to the thought of her multiple times, even while on the clock at work. He cuts the conversation short and keeps walking. On the sidewalk, he spots a large insect. Without breaking stride, Bart steps on it, crushes it, picks up the mangled carcass with his bare fingernails, drops it into a small plastic bag, and slips it into his pocket. Bart arrives early at Jim's Burgers. 69% of women love a punctual man. The diner opens at 10:30 a.m., owned by a man named Jim. Jim is lucky to be alive. A few months ago, Bart cooked him a custom triple cheese burger that put him into the intensive care unit for severe poisoning. Bart is honestly surprised the old man survived. Jim walks in and asks Bart if he's seen Hector. Hector is Bart's 20-year-old co-worker who is chronically late. Bart plays dumb. 5 minutes later, Hector rolls in, a tall 6'5", heavily tattooed stoner. Jim screams at Hector, threatening to fire him on the spot before storming into the back office. Hector walks over to Bart, completely unfazed. "Hey Barty, what's up?" Bart immediately responds by stating his exact height, 5.8. It's below average, but Bart's internal database reminds him that shorter women don't care about height. He looks at Hector's tattoos with disgust. Statistics state that heavily tattooed people are statistically terrible life partners and usually suffer from severe intimacy addiction. Bart prides himself on not being like that. In fact, Bart casually notes that he can get all the physical pleasure he needs from a literal jar of mayonnaise. He doesn't need mindless encounters, he just wants his 1% perfect match. Hector starts bragging about a girl he slept with the night before, describing her in graphic detail. Bart doesn't care. Fortunately, a customer walks up to the counter. Bart goes to fry the customer's burger. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out the Ziploc bag containing the fluid-soaked tissue from his morning routine, and casually wipes it across the raw burger meat before throwing it on the grill. He opens a jar of mayonnaise to finish the burger, momentarily pausing because he genuinely cannot remember if this specific jar was the one he used for his personal pleasure the night before. He shrugs and slashes it on anyway. The rest of the workday is completely mundane to Bart. He sneaks a live cockroach into a customer's milkshake just to watch them drink it, shadow boxes in the freezer during his break, and avoids his other co-worker, Lacey. Lacey has a newborn baby, which automatically disqualifies her from being his perfect match, since Bart hates children. Though, according to his mental tally, he has fantasized about her exactly 32 times. At 6 p.m., Bart's shift ends. He walks home, spots the exact same stray cat in his yard, and hurls it into the street again. Inside his house, Bart walks into the bathroom, relieves himself directly into a plastic grocery bag, seals it tight, and walks to the kitchen. He opens the freezer and neatly places the bag right next to Mimi. Mimi was his neighbor's small dog. Bart killed it a few days ago and kept the carcass, promising himself he would definitely find a creative use for it before the meat spoils. Bart takes a shower using expensive sandalwood soap, a scent that statistics prove is highly intoxicating to women between the ages of 25 and 30. He gets dressed, but before heading to bed, Bart walks down to the dark basement. In the corner of the basement, a child is tied up, crying. Bart casually raises a handgun, pulls the trigger, and executes the child in cold blood. He doesn't flinch. He notes to himself that 76% of neighbors will easily be convinced that a gunshot sound was just a car backfiring. As he finally lies down to sleep, Bart reflects on his past romantic failures. He remembers a date with a blonde woman named Deborah. Statistics say blonde women are highly prone to infidelity, but he gave her a chance anyway. Deborah wanted to be a doctor, which Bart knew was a delusion because she wasn't smart and constantly mispronounced basic words. But she wore minimal makeup, didn't smoke, didn't drink, had 0 tattoos, and wasn't a vegan. Bart despised vegans. He viewed them as fragile, high-maintenance people. He took Deborah to an Applebee's. Not too expensive, not too cheap. The date was going perfectly. He told her about how he builds birdhouses in his backyard, consciously omitting the detail that every birdhouse is rigged with lethal snap traps to crush the birds inside. Fascinated, Deborah smiled and asked, "Tell me a secret, Bart, something you've never told anyone else." Bart figured the date was going so well he could open up, so he casually told her about the time he broke into a local nursing home armed with a bearded dragon, a raw cucumber, and a heavy wooden mallet. He didn't even get to finish the story. Deborah stood up in absolute horror, sprinted out of the restaurant, and vanished into the night. It was deeply disappointing to Bart, especially since just 2 days later, poor Deborah was tragically murdered when an unknown assailant threw a jar of industrial acid directly into her face. Bart sighs, reminding himself that 56% of women actually respect a man who takes dangerous risks. The next day at work, Hector is late again, but Jim is too tired to yell. Bart spends his morning shift grinding up the frozen carcass of Mimi the dog, mixing it directly into the diner's special burger meat. He's genuinely shocked by how much meat can fit inside such a small dog. After work, Bart walks to the local grocery store to buy milk, a new jar of mayonnaise, a single ear of corn, and a can of tuna. While browsing, he observes 2 women. One is an elderly Asian woman whom Bart immediately disqualifies because her visible asthma means she won't be able to physically perform certain twisted acts Bart requires from a partner. The second is a Latina woman. Bart notices she isn't wearing a bra through her shirt. His internal database instantly triggers. Women who don't wear bras are statistically only looking for short-term physical encounters, not long-term stability. Disqualified. He heads to the checkout, but a voice calls out behind him. "Bart Bartley? Is that you?" Bart turns around. It's his old middle school principal, now aged and gray. The principal smiles warmly, asking how Bart has been. Bart lies smoothly, stating he is currently studying to become a school teacher. The principal commends him, saying the town desperately needs good mentors, before an awkward silence settles and Bart walks away. Bart is stunned the principal was so nice to him. After all, back in the 8th grade, that very same principal had walked into the janitor's closet and caught Bart doing something completely unmentionable to the cleaning supplies. At the cash register, Bart sees a 17-year-old cashier with black lipstick and facial piercings. As a teenager, Bart loved that aesthetic, but statistics show facial piercings strongly correlate with substance abuse. Disqualified. Bart exits the grocery store into the pitch-black night. Suddenly, he notices a woman a few feet ahead of him accidentally drop her purse onto the concrete. Bart sprints forward. He scoops up the purse, walks up behind her, and gently taps her on the shoulder. The woman turns around, flinching instinctual fear when she sees Bart's massive, balding frame in the dark. But when he hands her the purse, her face softens. "Oh my gosh, thank you," she breathes. "Most people would have stolen this. I'm Sarah." Bart stares at her, scanning her instantly. She is thick, but not morbidly obese. Her clothes are modest, covering her neck and shoulders. She wears almost no makeup. Bart's brain goes into overdrive. What a perfect match! But before he can formulate a sentence, Sarah smiles, says thank you again, and walks away into the dark. On his walk home, Bart violently kicks a metal pole in frustration. It happens every single time. He meets a mathematically flawless woman, and his social anxiety paralyzes him. He remembers a time at a county fair where a woman selling jewelry asked how his day was going. Bart tried to make a joke, saying he was having a heavy fat day. The woman thought Bart was calling her fat, insulted her weight in return, and walked away. Statistics: 98.3% of women despise being called fat. Bart gets home, drops his groceries, and sees the exact same stray cat in his backyard. Enraged that the animal won't die, Bart drags it inside and violently kicks it square in the face. Yet when Bart opens his can of tuna to make a sandwich, the battered cat crawls back over, purring and sniffing the meat. Bart smiles, feeds the cat a piece of tuna, pockets his single ear of corn, and takes a shower. The next morning, Bart pulls out his laptop. 22% of modern relationships start online. Granted, 89% of those profiles use deceptive filters, and 56% of people lie about their lives, but Bart decides to filter through the data. He remembers a girl he matched with months ago named Wendy. Wendy's profile stated she was a goth poet who wrote incomprehensible dark verses, preferred total isolation, and believed everyone on Earth had one true soulmate. To Bart, it was absolute poetry. They texted for months. Whenever Bart tried to call her, she refused to pick up. A normal man would see a red flag. Bart just assumed she was a hardcore introvert. Eventually, he drove 3 hours out of state to Louisiana to meet her at a seafood restaurant. 52% of long-distance relationships succeed, so he ran the risk. But when Wendy walked into the restaurant, Bart's jaw dropped. She claimed to be 26, but her face was covered in deep wrinkles. She looked well into her 40s. They sat down, and Wendy looked at him nervously. "Bart, I need to tell you something. It's a secret." Bart figured she was about to confess her real age. Instead, she dropped an atomic bomb. "I actually have 5 children," she said. Bart's clinical brain shattered. He slammed his silverware onto the table, stood up, and walked out without saying a single word. Wendy chased him into the parking lot, crying and begging him to listen, but Bart locked his car doors, started the engine, and drove away. It was a deeply tragic situation, especially because that very same night, an unexplained massive electrical fire completely engulfed Wendy's apartment complex, burning her and all 5 of her children alive. Bart shakes his head at the memory. A true artist, taken before her time. The next morning, Bart takes an Uber to work. He's been noticing a blonde female police officer cruising around Jim's Burgers for the past few days, and he can't risk getting pulled over with a suspended license. It's Tuesday. Tuesday at Jim's Burgers means one thing: special chili day. Bart fires up the kitchen, aggressively throwing the ground-up remains of Mimi the dog into the massive chili pots. The lunch rush is chaotic, and by 1 p.m. they are running out of meat. Bart asks Jim if he should prep another batch, knowing he still has plenty of cat meat at home, but Jim tells him they've made enough money for the day. Hector walks into the kitchen, bragging about how he had a threesome with 2 girls the night before. Bart mentally calculates. 83% of men desire a threesome, but only 18% ever achieve it. Hector might be telling the truth, but Bart doesn't care. He excuses himself to the restroom. In the privacy of the bathroom stall, Bart relieves himself into a Ziploc bag, seals it, and stores it in his pocket. 30 minutes later, Hector bursts into the kitchen, his eyes wide. "Yo, Bart, there's a girl out front asking for you." Bart rolls his eyes. "Get out of here, Hector. I don't have time for your games." "No, I'm serious, man," Hector stammers. "She's looking for a bald guy with glasses. She said you returned her purse to her downtown 2 nights ago." Bart freezes. The spatula slips in his hand. He is in the middle of grilling 12 burgers, 2 of which contain the processed meat of Mimi the dog. Hector snatches the spatula from his hand, slaps him on the back and tells him to go get her, using a crude piece of street slang. Bart wipes his greasy hands and steps out into the dining area. And there she is, Sarah, standing by the counter in a beautiful sundress. But as Bart walks closer, a cold sweat breaks across his bald head. His heart starts pounding in absolute terror, not because he's nervous to talk to a woman, but because he suddenly remembers that his pockets are currently filled with sealed bags of fresh human waste, and he is internally praying to God that the plastic seal holds before she smells what he truly is. Sarah looks up and smiles as Bart approaches the counter. "Hi, I just really wanted to come by and say thank you again for the other night. I saw the logo on your shirt and realized you worked here." Bart stands there, his mind racing, trying to figure out why a beautiful, wholesome woman would go out of her way just to thank him. Suddenly, 2 customers walk into the diner. Before Bart can panic about the lunch rush, Jim, the owner, rushes out from the back. Jim had been eavesdropping on their conversation from the kitchen. "Don't worry about the counter, Bart," Jim says with a massive grin. "I'll handle these guys. You two go ahead and talk." With Jim covering the grill, Bart finally gets a moment alone with Sarah. He swallows his anxiety and introduces himself. "My name is Bartholomew Bartley." Sarah bursts into a genuine melodic laugh. "Wow, your name is so funny. Your parents must have had a great sense of humor." Bart nods quietly. "They did." What he doesn't tell her, of course, is that they are both dead, his mother from the cyanide tea, and his father because he inexplicably decided to jump in front of a moving transit bus. Sarah leans in slightly. "Are you busy tomorrow, Bart? If not, would you want to grab some coffee with me?" Bart's brain instantly short-circuits. He begins physically to stutter, his face flushing red. Seeing his panic, Sarah gently asks, "Do you like coffee? We could hit a Starbucks, or maybe you know a cool local place." Bart manages to choke out a response. "A local place. Local is better." Sarah smiles, gives him a warm wave, and walks out of the diner. Bart stands frozen, staring at the door. His internal database boots up. Only 7% of women in the world are confident enough to make the first move and ask a man out. The rest of the day is a euphoric blur for Bart. He is so incredibly happy that he starts dancing in the kitchen. He is riding such a high that he even eats one of his own special chili burgers for lunch, completely forgetting that he literally ground up the neighbor's dead dog into the meat just a few hours earlier. That evening, Bart goes home and listens to a relationship podcast. The host drops a beautiful statistic. When couples go to a coffee shop for their first date instead of a bar, there is a 78% higher chance of building a long-term permanent bond. Even better, the annoying stray cat isn't in his yard tonight. Everything is going perfectly. In a fit of absolute unhinged joy, Bart urinates into a coffee mug, boils it on the stove to make a twisted herbal tea, and sits down to type a physical letter to the city's mayor, calmly stating that he intends to assassinate him in exactly 13 days. Because of the overwhelming excitement, Bart can't sleep. To calm his nerves, he sticks his finger into his pocket trash bag, counts to 50, and finally drifts off. The next morning, Bart wakes up early. He shaves, brushes his teeth twice, and applies 2 thick layers of cologne. He remembers his stat. Women like a man's natural sweat, but only when he's doing manual labor, not on a first date. He passes the remaining time watching graphic medical videos of doctors lancing massive fluid-filled cysts on a patient's back, brushes his teeth one more time, and walks out the door. Bart decides to take a massive risk. He's going to drive his car. Taking an Uber to a first date feels incredibly beta, and he wants to impress Sarah. The problem is, his car hasn't been started in 3 entire years. He's terrified the engine will die midway, ruining his image. But he turns the key and the engine roars to life without a single issue. While driving, Bart reflects on his past. He actually used to work as a professional barista at a coffee shop years ago. He loved it because data proved most women love coffee. Sadly, the health department permanently shut down the shop after they discovered that someone had been secretly grinding up live insects and mixing them into the espresso beans. Truly a shame. As Bart pulls into the coffee shop parking lot, he spots Sarah's car. It's a classic sedan. Bart grins. Data shows women who drive sedans are 3 times less likely to commit infidelity compared to women who drive 2-door coupes. The most loyal women drive minivans, but minivans means they want kids, and Bart hates kids, so a sedan is a mathematical jackpot. Bart walks inside. Sarah is sitting at a table, wearing a vibrant yellow sundress with matching yellow nail polish and a yellow hair scrunchie. "Good morning, Bart," she says warmly. They walk up to the counter to order. Bart glares at the woman working the register. He recognizes her instantly because he poisoned and killed her pet dog last winter. He shifts his focus back to Sarah. They grab their pastries and sit down. Sarah mentions that she loves gardening. Bart perks up. "I love gardening too, but I only grow cucumbers." Sarah giggles. "Well, I guess you must really love cucumbers." Bart smiles, entirely aware of another statistic. Women are highly attracted to men who can confidently make fun of themselves. As they drink their coffee, Sarah asks Bart how long he's been at the diner. He tells her 4 years and mentions he's studying to be a teacher. He asks what she does for a living. "I'm actually an online teacher," Sarah explains. "I create instructional videos." Bart is mesmerized. This woman is becoming more flawless by the second. He asks what her family is like. His brain notes, 94% of women who ask about your family on a first date are looking for long-term marriage. Bart tells her he has no kids, his parents are dead, his little brother died of a sickness at age 12, conveniently leaving out that Bart caused the sickness, and his grandfather died last year from low blood sugar, completely omitting how Bart used to secretly replace his grandfather's insulin vials with water. Midway through the date, Bart excuses himself to the restroom. Inside the stall, he aggressively stuffs layers of rough paper towels into his pants, desperately trying to mask any sudden bodily odors. When he walks back out, he sees Sarah on the phone. She hangs up and smiles at Bart. "Hey Bart, I had an amazing time today. Are you off tomorrow?" "Yeah," Bart nods. "I only work weekdays." "Perfect," Sarah says, locking eyes with him. "Why don't you come over to my house tomorrow evening?" Bart's heart leaps into his throat. 89% of women who invite a man out for a second date consider themselves in an official relationship, and 79% of women who invite a man to their home are looking for immediate physical intimacy. Bart is ecstatic. He gets back into his sedan and starts driving home, completely lost in a romantic daydream. Suddenly, a piercing siren wails behind him. Red and blue lights flash in his rear-view mirror. A police car forces him to pull over onto the shoulder of the highway. Panic sets in. Bart looks out his window and watches the officer step out of the cruiser. It's the exact same blonde female cop who had been loitering around Jim's Burgers all week. Bart's statistical brain starts firing in a panic. 70% of female police officers possess Type A personalities. They are aggressive, ambitious, and hungry for a promotion. 22% of them will write a ticket no matter what. Bart realizes driving without a license is a serious offense. If he gets arrested or his car gets impounded, he won't be able to go to Sarah's house tomorrow. He cannot let this woman ruin his perfect relationship. The blonde officer approaches his window. "License and proof of insurance, please, sir." Bart glares at her, rolls down his window, and immediately lets out a massive, loud fart right in her face. According to data, 82% of women will immediately back away from a man who does something that disgusting. The officer gives Bart a look of profound disgust, but she doesn't back away. "Mr. Bartley, I pulled you over because your rear brake light is completely out." A wave of intense relief washes over Bart. "Oh, I am so sorry, officer. I will drive straight to a mechanic and get it fixed right now." "All right," she says coldly. "Just sit tight while I run a quick verification check on your license, and then I'll let you go with a warning." The moment the word verification leaves her mouth, Bart's blood runs cold. If she runs his name through the system, his suspended license, his priors, and everything else will pop up instantly. As the officer turns around to walk back to her cruiser, Bart makes a split-second decision. He flings his car door open, steps out onto the asphalt, and calls out nervously, "Officer, wait! I don't know anything about cars. I don't know which one is the brake light or the tail light. Can you please just show me where it is?" Frustrated, the cop rolls her eyes, turns around, and points her heavy flashlight toward the back of his car. "I think a wire might just be loose inside," Bart says smoothly, walking toward the rear. "Could you please bring your flashlight closer and shine it inside the trunk while I look?" Sighing in annoyance, the officer steps up directly to the open trunk, leaning over to aim her beam into the dark recess. Bart reaches inside the trunk, grips a heavy, solid steel crowbar, swings it with his entire body weight, and smashes it directly into the back of the officer's skull. A sickening loud crack echoes through the night air as her bone shatters. Before her body can even hit the pavement, Bart grabs her limp torso, hoists her up, dumps her directly into the trunk of his car, and slams the lid shut. He sprints to the police cruiser, reaches inside to turn off all its lights, grabs the heavy police nightstick from the console, takes the officer's service weapon, and leaps back into his own driver's seat. He hits the gas and tears away into the darkness. He looks around frantically. Dozens of cars had driven past them on the highway, but since none of them stopped, Bart calculated that nobody noticed the execution. But as he speeds down the highway, a loud, muffled screaming starts vibrating from the back of his car. Thudding kicks start slamming against the inside of the trunk lid. The cop is still alive. "Shut up!" Bart screams at the top of his lungs. Suddenly, a deafening bang erupts from the trunk. A bullet tears right through the back seat, whizzing mere millimeters past Bart's ear. She had a backup ankle holster. Terrified, Bart grabs the officer's primary service weapon, points it blindly behind his shoulder through the back seat, and unloads the entire magazine into the trunk. The screaming stops. Complete silence. Bart pulls into his garage, drags the bloody corpse of the female officer inside his house, and locks the door. To celebrate the success of his incredible date, Bart walks to his kitchen freezer, grabs the bags of human waste he had saved, covers his entire body in it, and uses the police nightstick to perform a horrific, deeply depraved ritual on the officer's body. The next afternoon, Bart drives over to Sarah's house. He had fixed his broken brake light, though the back of his car was completely riddled with bullet holes. To play it safe, he parks his sedan 3 blocks away and walks the rest of the distance to her property. Sarah's house is a modest, beautifully kept suburban home. The front yard features a pristine, sprawling garden. As Bart steps through the front door, he is enveloped by the deep, soothing aroma of fresh lavender. The entire house is decorated with elegant pink trim. It doesn't feel overtly romantic, it just feels completely like a home. Sarah walks into the living room. Once again, she is wearing a stunning sundress, this one covered in vibrant yellow and red flowers. She is wearing bold, bright red lipstick. Bart's internal encyclopedia flashes. 60% of women wear red lipstick when they want to feel empowered or when they are actively seeking the absolute undivided attention of their male partner. Outside, the sky turns a dark, bruised purple. Thunder rumbles in the distance as a massive storm begins to roll in. Bart smiles. 56% of women prefer to be physically close to their partner during a heavy thunderstorm. "Hi, Bart," Sarah beams. "Would you like some herbal tea?" "Yes," Bart says, adjusting his glasses. "That would be wonderful." People who drink herbal tea are statistically 90% more conscious about their long-term health. Sarah brings out the tea, sits down next to him on the couch, and asks, "So, what did you get up to last night after our date?" Bart sips his tea smoothly. "Oh, nothing major. Just did some heavy, deep cleaning around the house, made a big pot of fresh meat soup, and watched some television." Of course, Bart doesn't mention that the cleaning involved scrubbing a cop's blood off his garage floor, or that the soup he drank was the leftover remains of the officer he had executed. Sarah smiles warmly. "That sounds lovely, Bart." Bart looks around the living room, completely captivated by the pink decorations and the lavender scent. He looks at Sarah's bright red lips, realizing that the mathematics of the universe have finally aligned. He has survived the poisonings, the murders, the traffic stops, and the cover-ups. He is sitting on a couch with his 1% perfect, flawless match. But as the thunder cracks loudly outside, Sarah leans in close to Bart, her smile widening into something slightly sharper. "I'm glad you're here, Bart," she whispers, "because now that we're alone, it's time for me to show you exactly what kind of instructional videos I make. Follow me down to the basement." Bart's heart races with anticipation. His statistical brain is completely short-circuiting with thoughts of physical intimacy. He follows Sarah down a flight of creaking wooden stairs into the darkness. When Sarah flips the light switch, Bart freezes. The basement isn't a cozy cellar, it is a completely soundproofed concrete torture chamber. The walls are lined with high-end professional recording cameras on tripods, blinding studio ring lights, and racks of glistening, razor-sharp surgical tools. In the center of the room stands a heavy, solid steel examination table, equipped with thick leather restraints. Before Bart can even process the scene, a massive, muscular man steps out from the shadows behind the staircase. This is Sarah's assistant and cameraman. Before Bart can turn around, the man smashes a heavy wooden club directly into the side of Bart's jaw. Bart's glasses shatter. He collapses onto the cold concrete floor, spitting out blood and broken teeth. He tries to crawl away, his mind frantically scrambling for a statistic. What are the odds of surviving an ambush? But before he can calculate, the large assistant hoists him up effortlessly and slams him onto the steel table. Bart screams as the heavy leather straps are cranked down around his wrists, ankles, and chest, pinning him completely flat. Sarah steps into the light. The sweet, wholesome demeanor is entirely gone. Her eyes are dead, vacant, and completely cold. She sets up a high-definition video camera, positions a bright studio light directly over Bart's face, and turns to look at the lens. "Welcome back, everyone," Sarah says to the camera in a cheerful, professional tone. "Today, we have a very special guest. This is Bart, and today I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step tutorial on human structural dismantling." Bart begins to sob, thrashing wildly against the leather straps. "Sarah, please, you don't understand. We are a perfect match. The data proves it. We belong together." Sarah doesn't even blink. She walks over to her tool rack and selects a pair of heavy, industrial steel pliers. She approaches the table, grips Bart's right hand, and looks directly into his terrified eyes. "Let's start with the digits," Sarah says calmly to the camera. She clamps the pliers onto Bart's right pinky finger. With a slow, deliberate twist, she crushes the bone and rips the finger completely off his hand. Bart lets out a piercing, blood-curdling shriek of agony. Blood sprays across the white sundress she is wearing, staining the yellow flowers a deep, violent crimson. Sarah smiles, entirely unfazed. She looks back at the camera. Notice how the joint separates when you apply a twisting motion rather than a straight pull. It yields much cleaner results. For the next 3 hours, the basement becomes an absolute, unmitigated symphony of suffering. Sarah works with the cold, meticulous precision of a seasoned surgeon. She uses a surgical scalpel to slowly peel away strips of skin from Bart's forearms, displaying the raw red muscle tissue to the camera lens like a chef demonstrating a recipe. Bart's screams turn into a raspy, desperate wheeze as his vocal cords begin to tear from the sheer volume of his shrieking. Next, Sarah picks up a small motorized bone saw. She plugs it in, and the high-pitched whine of the blade echoes through the room. She positions the spinning blade directly over Bart's left kneecap. Bart shakes his head violently, begging for mercy, spitting blood onto his own chest. Sarah presses the saw down. The blade bites into his flesh, spraying a mist of bone dust and dark blood across the concrete floor. She saws completely through his left leg, severing the limb at the knee. The large assistant steps in with a blowtorch, using the searing blue flame to cauterize the stump so Bart doesn't bleed out too quickly. The smell of burning, charred Bart's mind makes one final, twisted realization. She isn't a mistake. The universe didn't get the math wrong. He is a depraved, sadistic serial killer who tortures the innocent for his own sick pleasure, and she is an underground, dark web snuff film director who tortures monsters for a living. They are both completely devoid of human empathy. They are both obsessed with the meticulous, step-by-step process of death. She really is his 100% perfect match. Sarah picks up a heavy, rusty hammer. She stands directly over Bart's face, looking down at his mangled, bleeding body. And for the final segment of our video, Sarah says softly to the camera, we will be demonstrating cranial fracturing. She raises the hammer high above her head. Bart looks up at the rusty steel, closes his eyes, and breathes out his last internal statistic. The human skull can withstand roughly 500 pounds of pressure before collapsing. Sarah swings the hammer down with all her might. Crack. And that is the brutal, pitch-black conclusion of Judith Sonnet's 100% match. Bart spent his entire life analyzing the world through cold numbers, completely convinced he was the ultimate predator at the top of the food chain, only to walk directly into the parlor of a woman who turned his own lifestyle into a high-definition business. It turns out the mathematical probability of a serial killer dating a dark web executioner is a literal match made in hell. If you survived this uncut deep dive, show some support by slamming that like button. Drop a comment below letting me know what you thought of Bart's ultimate fate, and make sure you are subscribed with notifications turned on so you don't miss our next descent into the internet's most disturbing underground horror stories.